You are what you think. With your thoughts, you make the world. The Buddha. Have you ever wondered if a single moment, a pause, a glance, a forgotten bowl, could shift how you see everything? These 6 Zen tales aren't just stories. They're doorways. No complex philosophy. No long sermons. Just simple moments that crack something open. In their quiet way, these stories reveal truths that most of us are too busy to see. These tales have changed lives not by giving answers, but by dissolving the questions. Listen closely. The last one, it carries something most people miss, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. Story 1. Man and His Horse. Have you ever wondered why we move so fast, yet feel so lost? By a dusty road under the sky's quiet eye, a man once galloped past on horseback. His robe snapped in the wind like a flag of urgency. Dust rose in clouds behind him. Every sound, hoof against earth, breath against ribs, spoke of motion, urgency, intent. But his eyes did not see. Not the trees he passed, not the birds startled into flight, not even the man who called out from the roadside, "Where are you going?" The rider clutched the reins tighter and shouted back, "I don't know. Ask the horse." To laugh is easy. The image is absurd. A man hurtling forward, unaware of the destination. But look again. Isn't that us? The horse is not just a horse. It is a symbol, cloaked in dust and metaphor. It is momentum, habits, unconscious drives. It is the scroll of the phone, the email replied to before we breathe, the fear of being still. The man is not foolish. He is simply normal. He is what happens when we do not pause to question what is moving us. Zen does not mock him. Zen bows to him with compassion, because we all ride such horses. This story opens a quiet door into the nature of suffering. Not loud suffering, not dramatic anguish, but the quiet ache of a life lived at speed without presence. The kind that keeps us moving, even when we are tired. That pushes us to say yes when our heart whispers no. That fills the calendar while the soul waits at the edge, silent, unnoticed. The Buddha taught, all that we are is the result of what we have thought. The mind is everything. What we think, we become. But what if we are not thinking? What if we are simply reacting, riding horses set in motion long ago? In the story, the horse doesn't rebel. It doesn't buck or throw the man. It just runs, like our thoughts, like our habits, like the 1,000 small impulses that carry us from morning until night. And here is where Zen slips in, like a breeze beneath the door. It asks, what would happen if you stopped the horse? The question is not about control. It's not about domination. Zen is not about muscling the mind into stillness. It is about awareness, about seeing the reins in your hand and choosing to hold them, not out of fear, but out of clarity. When the man shouts, "Ask the horse," he reveals something tender. He has forgotten he is the rider, and perhaps so have we. So today I ask you gently, what is your horse? What have you been riding without question? Is it the need to be busy, the ache to be praised, the fear of being forgotten? And can you, even for one breath, step off, just long enough to ask, where am I going, and why? Sometimes the most profound wisdom is not in answers, but in the questions we've never dared to ask. The path is not far. The reins are already in your hands. Shall we begin to walk? Let us sit together a moment longer. If the first story asked where we are going, this one asks, what do we expect to find when we get there? Story 2. It happened during a quiet evening lecture. The soft rustle of robes, the scent of incense curling upward, and the hush of attentive breath filled the room. A Zen teacher named Roshi sat calmly, surrounded by his students. Young minds curious, eager, and quietly restless. One student, with a half-smile that mixed reverence and rebellion, raised his hand. "Roshi," he said, "I've listened to you for years. Can you please put all of Buddhism into one sentence?" Laughter broke out, soft and human. The question was bold, maybe even naive. But Roshi, amused and unshaken, joined in the laughter, then leaned forward slightly. And with the same calmness that one might use to place a teacup on a table, he answered, "Everything changes." Then, just as simply, he turned to the next question. No drum roll, no long preface, just 3 words, handed like a stone into the palm, weighty, simple, complete. You might think it too simple. But in Zen, the simplest truths are often the most difficult to live. Why? Because our lives are constructed on the scaffolding of permanence. We believe in tomorrow's promises, in the shape of our relationships, in the illusion that today's emotions or identities will remain. But change does not bargain. It does not soften its approach to spare us discomfort. It arrives like wind through a tree, dislodging the leaves of all we thought we could cling to. And when it comes, we often suffer, not because change is cruel, but because we resisted it. In this sense, Roshi's answer is not only profound, it is tender. It offers a lantern for those navigating loss, fear, and impermanence. His words are not a dismissal, but a doorway. Because if everything changes, then suffering too is not eternal. Heartbreak shifts. Loneliness softens. Even grief, which feels like it will never loosen its grip, eventually changes shape. And therein lies the quiet mercy of impermanence. The student's question held a yearning to reduce the vastness of Dharma into something digestible, singular. But Zen does not serve meals like that. It serves reminders. And Roshi's answer is just that. A reminder that life, in all its complexity, is also incredibly fragile and fluid. To live without awareness of change is to live asleep in a dream that can vanish at any moment. The Buddha once said, "All conditioned things are impermanent. When one sees this with wisdom, one turns away from suffering." This isn't a philosophical abstraction. It's medicine. It is what steadies the heart when the body ages, when relationships shift, when the world does not behave as we wish it to. When we live with the truth of change, we stop grasping so tightly. We stop demanding that things stay as they are. We stop suffering from the expectation that anything can remain fixed. To see impermanence clearly is to see beauty more vividly. Like the cherry blossoms that bloom only for a short while, their brevity makes them unforgettable. Like the laughter of a child, the scent of summer, the final page of a beloved book. We hold these things gently because we know they cannot stay. And what a gift it is to feel their presence fully while they are here. So this story is not just about a clever teacher. It's about us. It's about the spaces where we secretly hope for forever. In our careers, our partners, our youth, our beliefs, we want something to stay. But Zen reminds us, it is the holding on that hurts most. When we learn to open our hands, what comes and goes can pass through us without tearing. This is not detachment, but intimacy without clutching. Roshi did not answer with complexity. He gave the student what he needed, not a map, but a compass, a single direction pointing inward. Everything changes. The question now is, can we sit still enough to feel it? Can we witness the rising and falling of our own minds and not interfere? Can we love knowing that love too evolves? This is the heart of Zen. Not to build walls against change, but to become like water, shaping, flowing, adapting, to dance with impermanence rather than fear it. Even now, as you read these words, you are different than the one who began this sentence. Cells shift, breath moves, attention drifts and returns. So pause. Let this truth touch you, not with cold detachment, but with warmth. Change is not the enemy. It is the very rhythm of life itself. When you no longer resist it, even sorrow becomes a sacred visitor. Even endings whisper beginnings, and you may find that in letting go, you are finally held. Let us walk a little deeper into this story, not away from its discomfort, but toward its truth. Story 3: Real Prosperity. One day, a wealthy man, dressed in fine robes and burdened not with poverty but with the complexity of legacy, approached Master Sengai, a Zen monk known for his clarity. The man bowed respectfully and made a heartfelt request. "Master," he said, "please write something for my family, a blessing, something we can pass down through generations to ensure lasting happiness and prosperity." Sengai, with calm eyes and a quiet nod, took up a large brush and a sheet of rice paper. With steady hands, he wrote only 6 words: "Father dies, son dies, grandson dies." He placed the brush down and handed the paper to the man. At first there was silence. Then came the flush of offense. The wealthy man's eyes widened. "Is this some kind of cruel joke?" he asked, half incredulous, half hurt. "I came to you for a blessing, and this is what you give me." Sengai did not flinch. His gaze remained soft. He answered slowly, as if placing each word like a stone in a garden path. "If your son were to die before you," he said, "would that not break your heart? If your grandson died before your son, would that not bring sorrow to you both?" The man said nothing. "But if each of you dies in natural order, father first, then son, then grandson, then life has unfolded as it should. There is grief, yes, but not tragedy. There is loss, but not chaos. That," he added gently, "is true prosperity." When Master Sengai wrote the words, "Father dies, son dies, grandson dies," he did not mock prosperity. He redefined it. To the untrained eye, his blessing appears harsh, even cold. But in Zen, wisdom often arrives dressed in robes that unsettle before they soothe. What did the man expect? Likely something flowery: long life, wealth, joy. Words that comfort without challenging. Instead, Sengai handed him the very rhythm of life. Here, in these 6 quiet words, lies an entire teaching, a teaching not about tragedy, but about rightness. In a world driven by desire, we tend to think of blessing as getting what we want: health without sickness, gain without loss, love without parting. But the Dharma shows us something subtler. True peace is not born from control. It is born from alignment with the nature of things. The man's offense is understandable. Who among us has not wanted to hear only what soothes? But Zen compassion does not coddle. It awakens. And sometimes, awakening feels like offense. Master Sengai did not wish him grief. He offered him a map through it. A lineage that flows in natural order is not a curse. It is a prayer answered not with miracles, but with balance. Imagine a river flowing calmly downstream. That is the life Sengai blessed, not without stones or storms, but moving in its rightful direction. When a father buries his son, the river backs up. The pain is unspeakable. When a child must grieve their own child, the heart cracks in unnatural silence. Sengai's words were not a list of events. They were an invocation of mercy. To the one who sees with clarity, father dies, son dies, grandson dies, is not about death. It is about timing. It is not about sorrow. It is about the absence of premature sorrow. Zen reminds us that what we call tragedy is often just the refusal to accept the nature of things, and what we call blessing is often merely comfort. But comfort is not always truth, and truth, when embraced, becomes the deepest comfort of all. The Buddha taught that all things are impermanent, not as a threat, but as a foundation for liberation. He did not say we must avoid loss. He said we must understand it, see it clearly, and in that seeing, become free from its grip. Sengai's blessing was a mirror reflecting this teaching. True prosperity, then, is not the absence of endings. It is the presence of order. A life where love ripens and ends in its season, where no child need bury their parent too soon, where grief, though inevitable, arrives on time, where each goodbye is natural and each generation bows to the next in peace. So what does this teach us? Who fear endings? Who hold on so tightly, hoping time might forget to move forward? It teaches us to loosen the grip, to stop chasing permanence in a world made of waves, and instead, to live deeply within each moment, knowing that it will pass, and loving it all the more because it does. Sengai's calligraphy was not art, it was dharma, not ink on paper, but a doorway to right view. The man sought a treasure for his descendants. Sengai gave him the one treasure that cannot be lost, a mind at peace with the way things are. Ask yourself, what does prosperity mean to you? Is it a stack of things? A series of unbroken joys? Or is it the strength to face loss with grace, to hold love with open hands, to smile at the unfolding of life even as it changes shape? Real prosperity, Zen teaches, is not something you hold. It is something you recognize in the silence after grief, in the natural rhythm of generations, in the stillness that remains when you no longer resist the way of things. Breathe now. Imagine each life unfolding gently into the next, father to son, son to grandson. No rush, no reversal, just the quiet rhythm of nature doing what it has always done. This is not morbid, it is sacred. And perhaps this too is what Master Sengai was showing us, that true blessing is not found in escaping change, but in welcoming it with understanding. That when life moves as it must, we are not victims. We are participants in something ancient and holy and complete. Let us now sit with the old farmer, under the same sky he worked beneath, and look again, not at the events, but at the mind that received them. Once upon the time there was an old farmer who had worked his crops for many years. One day his horse ran away. Upon hearing the news, his neighbors came to visit. "Such bad luck," they said sympathetically. "Maybe," the farmer replied. The next morning the horse returned, bringing with it 3 other wild horses. "How wonderful," the neighbors exclaimed. "Maybe," replied the old man. The following day, his son tried to ride one of the untamed horses, was thrown, and broke his leg. The neighbors again came to offer their sympathy on his misfortune. "Maybe," answered the farmer. The day after, military officials came to the village to draft young men into the army. Seeing that the son's leg was broken, they passed him by. The neighbors congratulated the farmer on how well things had turned out. "Maybe," said the farmer. This story, so simple in its language, is deep in Dharma. It invites us to look closely at our habit of labeling, how quickly we declare something good or bad, fortunate or tragic. How swiftly we close the book on moments, as if we know how the next chapter will read. But the farmer's wisdom lies in seeing that life is not so linear, that each event is not a conclusion, but a thread, woven with others into the greater mysterious fabric of existence. The Buddha once taught, "This arises, that becomes. This ceases, that ceases." It is the teaching of dependent origination, the truth that all things are interwoven, that nothing stands alone. And so, the old man's repeated maybe is not indifference, it is insight. It is the voice of one who sees the interdependence of all things. There is no need to rush to judgment, no need to cling to fleeting joy or recoil from temporary pain. For who among us can see the full unfolding of one moment's ripple? What we call a misfortune may save us from a greater one. What we call a blessing may bind us subtly to suffering. To live in awareness of this is not to withdraw from life, but to enter it more fully, with humility. To say maybe is to keep the heart open. In practice, this means pausing before we label, breathing before we react, listening to life not as a verdict, but as a conversation still unfolding. It means seeing the argument with a loved one not just as conflict, but maybe as the opening for deeper understanding. The lost job not just as loss, but maybe as the redirection towards something more whole. Even the illness, the disappointment, the grief, all of it, when met with a heart that whispers maybe, becomes something softer, less final. This is not to romanticize suffering, but to acknowledge that life refuses to be boxed. That reality resists our quick conclusions, and that peace comes not from controlling outcomes, but from seeing through them. The farmer's strength lies not in resignation, but in patience, in the trust that things will reveal their nature in time, and that our job is not to decide too quickly, but to stay awake. The Dharma does not tell us to be emotionless. It invites us to feel without clinging, to move through joy and sorrow as through seasons, present but not possessive. What does it mean for us then to live like this farmer? Perhaps it means walking through our day with fewer declarations and more curiosity. Instead of, "This is unfair," perhaps, "Let me see what unfolds." Instead of, "This is perfect," perhaps, "Let me not hold too tightly." To live with maybe in our hearts is not weakness. It is wisdom. It is the spaciousness that allows grace to appear. It is the humility to know that the story is still being written. So now, close your eyes. Think of something in your life you've labeled: good, bad, gain, loss. Hold it lightly, and whisper as the farmer might. Maybe. Let that word open a window. Let it bring air to the closed room of your judgments. Let it soften the edges of your joy so it becomes gratitude. Let it soften the edges of your sorrow so it becomes understanding. And as you walk again into your world, do so not with certainty, but with presence. Not to define life, but to meet it. One step, one breath, one maybe at a time. Let us now turn our attention to another gathering, this one not in fields or forests, but within the quiet walls of a meditation hall. Story 5. Right and Wrong. Here, students from all over Japan had come to study under the renowned Zen master Bankei, drawn by the clarity of his presence and the simplicity of his teachings. These were weeks of seclusion, where silence deepened, minds were sharpened, and egos quietly surfaced. Among the students was one who, unknown to the others, had begun to steal. The thefts were small, perhaps an item of clothing, food, or incense, but they did not go unnoticed. Word reached the other pupils, and they were unsettled. After much whispering and murmuring, a few stepped forward and brought the matter to Master Bankei. "We must protect the Sangha," they said. "This student must be expelled." But Bankei remained still and said nothing. The days continued. Then the same student was caught again, red-handed. This time the frustration was too great. The students gathered, and in their hands was a petition. It was clear. If this thief was allowed to stay, they would all leave. Bankei read the paper without haste, then called the entire community to gather. He looked out at them, not with anger nor disappointment, but with calm that cut through the air like a bell. "You are wise brothers," he said. "You know what is right and what is not right. If you wish to leave, you are free to do so. But this brother, he does not yet know. If I do not teach him, who will?" Then, turning to the one who had stolen, Bankei said nothing more. His eyes held the weight of truth and compassion, not to shame but to see. And in that moment, something shifted. The student fell to his knees, weeping, not from punishment, but from the unbearable kindness he had received. All desire to steal left him in that instant. To the outside world, this may seem foolish. Why keep someone who harms the harmony? Why risk losing many for the sake of one? But here lies the heart of the Dharma. Bankei was not blind to the theft. He was not permissive out of weakness. He was teaching something few are willing to live, that real discipline arises not from exclusion, but from love that refuses to abandon. The Buddha once said, "Hatred does not cease by hatred, but only by love. This is the eternal law." Bankei embodied this. He understood that our deepest mistakes are not cured by rejection, but by being seen fully, especially in our darkest moments. This story is not just about one thief. It is about all of us. For who among us has not taken what was not ours, time, attention, energy, even hope? Who has not betrayed trust, fallen short, or drifted from the path? And when we did, what changed us? Punishment? Or the rare, searing light of compassion that saw through the action and into the human? Bankei's silence, and then his refusal to cast out, was not passivity. It was a profound act of faith, not in rules, but in the potential for transformation. This does not mean we ignore harm. It means we go deeper. We ask, what causes the hand to steal? What hunger lies beneath the action? And can we meet that hunger with something more healing than expulsion? In a world quick to cancel, quick to judge, this story calls us to pause, to consider that sometimes the one who breaks the rules is the one who most needs to be invited closer. To live this way takes courage. It is far easier to turn away. But Zen is not about ease, it is about waking up. And to wake up means to see the whole, not just the wrong, but the suffering beneath it. So now think of someone you've written off, someone whose behavior crossed a line. Can you hold their image, just for a moment, in the light of Bankei's gaze? Not to excuse, but to understand. Not to forget, but to remember that we are all still learning. This is not weakness. This is the strength of the Bodhisattva, the one who chooses to stay, even in the mess, because someone might still be saved by kindness. And when you are the one who has fallen, and we all fall, may you meet a teacher like Bankei, one who sees the pain beneath your grasping and does not turn away. This, too, is Zen. Not perfect conduct, but perfect presence. The world does not need more judgment. It needs more seeing. And in that seeing, the thief becomes a brother. The rule breaker becomes a student, and the Sangha becomes a true refuge, not just for the pure, but for all who long to return. The final story. Watch yourself. I wish to share with you begins not in a monastery, nor in a forest, but on the dusty streets of a small town, where a poor widower and his young student made their living as acrobats. The teacher, balancing a tall bamboo pole upon his head, would walk slowly and steadily while the little girl, Maida, climbed to the top and stood poised, delicate as a flower caught in a breeze. Their act required complete focus. One misstep could lead to disaster. One morning, before their performance, the teacher spoke. "Listen, Metta. Today I will watch you, and you watch me. In this way, we can help each other stay balanced and prevent any accidents. If we do that well, we'll surely earn enough to eat." Metta, though young, carried the clarity of insight within her. She looked up at her teacher and replied, "Dear Master, I think it would be better if each of us watches ourselves. If I maintain my own balance and you maintain yours, we will both stay safe. To care for myself is to care for us both." It is said the Buddha himself told this story, not as an acrobatic lesson, but as a teaching on mindfulness. For what is life, if not a constant balancing act? And what is mindfulness, if not the art of noticing each breath, each step, each moment as it is? At first, the teacher's idea seems noble, that we protect each other by watching each other. And in part, this is true. We live in interconnection. But Metta's reply offers a deeper dharma. True safety, true harmony begins within. For when each person tends to their own awareness, presence radiates outward like ripples from a clear pond. Let us look more deeply at the metaphor. The bamboo pole is our life, precarious, shifting, needing care. The act of balancing is the practice of awareness. And the moment we direct all our attention outward, trying to control another's focus, we risk losing our center. The fall begins when we forget the ground beneath our own feet. The Buddha once taught, by protecting oneself, one protects others. By protecting others, one protects oneself. But how is this so? To protect oneself is not selfishness. It is not the guarding of ego or the pursuit of personal comfort. It is to remain centered in mindfulness. When you are mindful, your words grow softer, your actions become wise, your presence becomes a refuge. Others near you feel safe, not because you monitor them, but because your stillness invites theirs. Metta's wisdom reveals a subtle truth, that to truly support another, we must first be rooted in our own attention. Just as a tree, strong in its own trunk, offers shade to others, so too must we first stabilize ourselves. Imagine now your own life as that balancing act. How often do you abandon your own center to manage others' emotions? How often do you seek to fix, to advise, to intervene, while your own breath runs shallow and your thoughts scatter? To watch oneself is not to become isolated. It is to return again and again to the only place where clarity begins, within. From there, we can meet the world not as rescuers, but as mirrors of peace. In this way, the story of Metta and her master becomes a soft call to practice. Whether walking, eating, listening, or working, return to your own posture. Notice your inner weather. Stand where you are. This is not a withdrawal from life. It is the deepest way of entering it. And when you meet others, those who struggle, who sway, who lose balance, do not rush to take on their weight. Instead, deepen your own steadiness. From that place, your presence may lift them more than your effort ever could. This is the paradox of spiritual care, that by watching ourselves we serve all beings, that the most compassionate act may be a breath taken in full awareness, that the world is not saved by our striving, but by our stillness. So now pause. Place your feet on the ground. Let your breath rise and fall. Ask, am I watching myself? Am I here? And if not, come back, gently, kindly. For when you are present, you are already helping the world, just as the little girl helped her teacher, not by watching him, but by standing fully in her own balance. So too can you become a quiet center in the circus of life. This, the Buddha reminds us, is the way. to care inwardly, to be mindful, to live not from fear, but from clarity. In doing so, we become both the acrobat and the support, the student and the teacher. The act continues, the pole stays steady, and all beings near and far benefit from the calm we keep. Now, as our journey through 6 Zen tales comes to a close, let us gather the quiet fruits of what we've seen. These are not just stories, they are seeds. Each contains a teaching that, if carried in your heart, may slowly transform the way you see, the way you act, the way you live. The Man and His Horse reminds us to pause and ask, what is driving me? Awareness of unconscious momentum is the first step to regaining the reins of our life. The One Answer teaches that everything changes. By embracing impermanence, we soften our grip, live more gently, and love more freely. Real prosperity shows that true blessings lie in natural order, not in control. Peace arises when we align with life's quiet rhythm, not when we escape it. Non-judgment reveals that we never see the whole story. Maybe becomes a sacred doorway to humility, patience, and presence. Right and wrong teaches that compassion is deeper than punishment. What transforms a heart is not rejection, but being seen with love in the moment of error. Watch Yourself reminds us that mindfulness is service. When we are centered, the world around us steadies. By caring inwardly, we begin to care for all. These lessons are not grand pronouncements. They are small lanterns. You don't need to master them all at once. Simply hold them close and return to them when the wind rises. They are here to guide you gently toward the stillness within. May you walk with these stories not as burdens, but as friends. May they whisper to you in moments of doubt, and may your life, one breath at a time, become the story someone else needs to hear. Peace, always.